Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is May 6th, and today we're going to take a look at the system rolling through the Pacific Northwest. You can see it here on the infrared satellite imagery. You can see this jet stream kind of pointed in our general direction. It's going to keep our weather active here through probably the next week as a big trough opens up over the west coast, and we'll take a look at those systems individually as they roll on by. And you can see the cloud shield already approaching, bringing rainfall. It's already starting here in western Washington. It's going to continue off and on through the day. The system will move through tomorrow, bringing a pressure rise. Some pretty good winds forecast for the Willamette Valley. We'll take a look at that in some detail as well. And even some gusts up towards the 30s or 40s for some portions of the Puget Sound. Higher terrain is going to get some good winds out of this system also, with some mountain snows as well. And that's going to continue on through early next week at a minimum. We'll take a look at the extended as well to see if we can get any ridging building in behind this trough here as we go on in through mid and late next week. We'll take a look at the new 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day forecast. We'll also look at La Nina conditions across the central Pacific Ocean, so stick with me here till the end of the video. Now, taking a look here across the rest of the country, the fire danger across the southwest. This does include the deserts of California and Nevada down there and on into West Texas. You can see some wind advisories are already up, high wind watches as well. We're going to have a severe weather threat down through the southeast today. We'll take a brief look at that. Now, this is National Weather Service Las Vegas. Check out some of these winds going through the area today, this weekend. This should continue on through Monday. Blowing dust, power outages, dangerous crosswinds, and there is fire danger as well, blowing debris. So nice graphics here for the National Weather Service in Las Vegas. This storm system is going to affect all the west coast of North America here through the next few days. And National Weather Service, Great Falls, Montana, you can see that higher terrain snowfall is going to extend, especially down through Yellowstone there. So hazardous backcountry, heads up. It is a nice time of year when you do get nice weather out there, but this is not the case recently. And we're going to be getting snowfall all the way through Montana and through Yellowstone. So if you have a trip planned, be prepared for that. You can see this enhanced risk of severe weather out here for the East Coast. Check this out, 10% tornadoes all the way out there, Virginia Beach, down through Columbus, near Atlanta there too. So heads up if you're traveling out through the southeast for that threat. And you can see we do have a general thunderstorm threat for much of the Pacific Northwest. Generally, it looks like Tacoma south through much of Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. So if you guys hear thunder, you know, that's the threat today. Will be a little bit of lightning and maybe some gusty winds, but nothing extreme, nothing severe expected here in the Pacific Northwest. But you might get a lightning strike or a rumble of thunder. Now, looking on to day two, this pushes off towards Spokane and eastern Oregon, Idaho, Montana for tomorrow. Just a marginal severe threat for portions of Florida and portions of Nebraska and South Dakota. Day three looks like we reintroduced that general thunderstorm threat for portions of Oregon and Southwest Washington too. We'll pay attention to that in tomorrow's forecast a little bit more. Day four out here, they're highlighting some severe possible for portions of Minnesota and Iowa. I may go out and chase that for a day. We'll see how that works out as severe season continues across much of Tornado Alley, and there's great uncertainty for next week. So I'll be watching that forecast closely. Now back to the Pacific Northwest, you can see SeaTac. Look at this. The observed high yesterday was a meager 52. That is 12 degrees below normal. That is extremely rare. I mean, it's more reminiscent of like late February or March. So we're basically getting winter here, and we're getting towards late spring now too. So very unusual weather, and you can see this highlighted here, this green line. We're up towards 64 degrees this time of year, and that 52 is well below normal. I mean, just very unusual. Now, checking out this next system rolling in here, you can see this broad wind field this storm has, and it's going to bring some strong winds to the Oregon coast and through the Willamette Valley, the higher terrains. So it's mainly targeting Oregon, but the pressure rise behind it will bring some gusty winds down the Strait of Juan de Fuca Saturday morning, and perhaps some gusty winds through the Puget Sound a bit. And you can see these high winds, or I should say strong winds, extending through eastern Oregon and Washington here on the day Saturday. Before the next system dives down into southern Oregon, you can see these strong winds. It's going to drag across much of the southwest here, leaving us in a cool, showery position here through much of the Pacific Northwest. So we'll be checking this out system by system on through the days here. We'll look at this closely again tomorrow for what it means for thunderstorm threat across the Pacific Northwest as well. And if we go ahead and jump out a little bit more here, you can see the system moving through today and looks like a rainy day across much of western Washington. Looks like southern BC, not quite as rainy as Washington and Oregon, but you can see the mountain snows going on here. And then the next system develops through southern Oregon and northern California. Look at the Siskiyous getting blasted with some snowfall here. We'll take a look at that in some detail here as well. Cascades getting snowfall southern BC as this trough is just open over the west coast here, bringing windy conditions across much of the area. And this will eject a storm system out here that may cause some severe weather that I showed you earlier across Minnesota. As you can see, that move on into Canada there. But look at this, mountain snow across the region. Very helpful for the summer coming up here. So here we're looking at the European surface pressure map. You can see this system approaching the Oregon-Washington coast. It's going to bring some breezy conditions through the Willamette Valley, probably just south of Portland for the strongest winds, up towards 40 miles per hour, and some gusts potentially up to 50 for the Oregon coast here as this system approaches. You can see it move through, and then it looks like it's going to bring a nice little burst of wind on the back side of it as we get this pressure rise, and that'll bring some good westerlies down the Strait of Juan de Fuca as well. Take a look at some of those speeds here in a moment. And we go into a Saturday night and Sunday morning. The next system moves through southern Oregon into northern California. It's going to continue some pretty good winds across, especially southwest portions of the west coast here. And it's going to leave us in this cold, showery, troughy position. Good mountain snows, valley rains will continue off and on. And if we're lucky, maybe a sunbreaker too. Now checking out the European here, this is the gust swath. You can see some gusts up towards 40 miles per hour through Friday afternoon, the Willamette Valley, and you can see this pressure rise come through the Puget Sound tomorrow, and we might get some gusts up towards 35 miles per hour, probably just below the threshold of where we would get some nuisance power outages. But you can see the 40 plus mile per hour winds coming down the Strait of Juan de Fuca there, 45 plus for the eastern slopes of the Cascades, and even higher, maybe even 50 miles per hour for the high backcountry for eastern Oregon, the Cascades, and the Oregon coast. So heads up for these wind speeds if you are in the backcountry, higher terrain, Oregon coast, and you'll notice the breezy conditions through the Puget Sound and the Strait of Juan de Fuca as well. Now, checking this out, this is dynamic tropopause potential temperature. This just kind of highlights where the polar regions are. And you can see the cold air with the purple, and the white would be the coldest. And you can see the equatorial regions, what gets warmed up by the sun more than the polar areas do. And so there's just this never-ending attempt to balance the atmosphere that the Earth goes through. And you can see this system moving through yesterday on Thursday, and then here comes Friday's system. You see the general troughing position for Washington. There's Alaska, here's the Pacific Ocean, the Hawaiian Islands here. And as we put this into motion, you'll see that system move in through Northern California and Oregon, just leaving us in this big trough here coming up. So this kind of highlights these areas, and you can kind of see the interaction between some of this warmer air and some of the cold polar regions here, and that's what really develops our storms. And that's why Friday's system is fairly strong. You can see some warm air getting associated with that. There's a good pressure gradient here with this basically this polar lobe that kind of is moving through the region here on the day Friday. And then another shot of cold air coming through as you can see this trough just open up over the west coast here. And that's going to continue on into early next week. Now this is looking at that same map from a different view. Here's the North Pole here. Here's Washington, Alaska. There's Hawaii. Here's Asia over here. And you can kind of see this play-by-play motion here of that never-ending attempt to balance out the atmosphere that the Earth can just never win. You see the warmer air towards the equatorial regions and the colder air for the polar regions. And you can see where this cold air breaks off and it creates these mid-latitude cyclones. And when you get these good pressure gradients, that's where you get the strongest systems. So you can see why it's going to be windy down through here, the southern portion of the west coast here through Nevada and portions of California, the desert's higher terrain. And you can see why we're going to be in this cool troughy pattern as we go on in through early next week. And what we're looking for is to see if any kind of ridging builds on the backside of this trough and maybe starts to give us some nice weather towards the end of next week, which we'll look at here shortly. Now taking a look at the general trough and mean ridge position, this is 18,000 feet, and this is the system that moved through yesterday that brought breezy conditions across the Puget Sound. Nice rainy day, very cold temperatures as well. There goes Friday's system there, and then that reinforcing shot opens up the trough that moves into Northern California here later on Sunday. And you can see this ridge try to build, but look at this, another shot of cold air comes down here and through the extended here on the European run of 06Z last night. So the troughing doesn't look to end anytime soon. Let's go ahead and back this up to the 0Z that goes out even further. You see that troughing open up. Kind of a dirty ridge builds here, but the troughing of the Gulf of Alaska never seems to be far off. But then look at this ridge build. We might get some nice weather going on in through maybe later next weekend on in through early next week. As you can see, this trough all the way out of the Pacific, but this big ridge over the west coast, and associated troughing would dive down over the east coast. So you can kind of see how this all ties in together. What meteorologists call a wave train, as these systems roll across the planet, and then well off into the extended, another trough visits the Pacific Northwest later on into May. But that's getting off into fantasy land now. Let's take a look at the GFS and see if it agrees. This is the 06Z. Let's just go ahead and update this and see what kind of update we get here. Actually, the 12Z. Let's see how far this rolls out here. There goes that system through the area today. Then the reinforcement, another system going through southern Oregon there, northern California. Trough opens up, a little bit of ridge tries to build, but it's pretty good agreement with the European that another portion of cold air is going to move over the region and really direct hit on the Pacific Northwest here. Very cold air aloft all the way through next week into next weekend. And then the troughing just kind of hangs out on the GFS here. Tries to build this ridge, but the troughing never far away. It does not agree with the European in the extended here on the operational run of the GFS. And in fact, this keeps us mixing in with these troughs all the way into later May. Could you believe that? Maybe we'll set some records for all-time cold May with this kind of a pattern, but it's still way off in fantasy land. Plenty of time for this to change. Maybe we'll get a ridge that will put an end to all this troughing and cold weather. I know a lot of people are getting sick of it, but we got to take what comes. Here comes a Canadian model here. There goes Friday's system rolling through, and there goes the next one into northern California. Big trough opens up over the west coast here. Reinforcing shot of cold air comes down behind that, keeping the troughing going on in through next weekend. And looks like the Canadian moving more towards the European here into the extended. So later, possibly later next week, and maybe some ridging building up over the Pacific Northwest. But let's not hold our breath yet. You can see the model disagreement that we have, and we'll continue to watch that day by day. Looking at the GFS, here's the ensemble temperatures all the way through next week, well below average temperatures, and then maybe getting up towards normal as we go on in through mid and later May. But this is way too far out to have any kind of reliable forecast at this point. The European agrees, well below average, at least through Wednesday. Let's back up to the last night's or yesterday afternoon's run here, and you can see that all the way through mid-May below average. Then maybe starting to get towards average temperatures as we go through mid-May, but this could be off again too, especially if we get some of this troughs digging back down. We would stay below normal. But as you saw, some of the European showed a potential for ridge building on into our extended, so we'll just keep watching for that day by day. Now looking for the winds going in through Saturday, you can see the European has been painting some winds here into the mid and upper 30s. The HER and the NAM do not show these kind of wind speeds for the Puget Sound, so we're just going to see just how well the European performs here with tomorrow's winds. As we talked about, that system that rolls through and that pressure gradient behind the system looks to bring these winds here through Saturday afternoon across the Puget Sound. Looking through Tillamook, Oregon, look at this. Expect some gusts up in the 40s, maybe upper 40s. Siskiyou Summit, strong winds as well. They're going to be getting snow down there. Heads up if you're traveling southbound on I-5 through Oregon into Northern California for winter weather driving and some gusty winds. And Stampede Pass, Washington, you can see the winds for the higher terrain should be a bit higher, gusts up into the 40s. Stampede Pass getting snowfall out of the system all the way through Sunday morning. Potential for more as we go through next week with that upper level trough hanging over the area. Crater Lake, look at this, getting good snowfall all the way down into southern Oregon for the higher terrain as we go on in through early next week, and that could possibly continue depending on that trough position on in through mid next week as well. Crater Lake National Park, gusty winds, snow falling. You know, this is more like March than it is May. So heads up if you guys are out there through southern Oregon traveling around. Look at San Francisco even. During the late day Saturday into Sunday morning, some pretty good winds coming down through there with that system diving out into southern Oregon, northern California. Look at this, McCarran, Las Vegas, some gusts up towards 50 miles per hour on the, as you go into through Sunday night into Monday morning. So heads up for that if you're flying down to Vegas. This is Palm Springs. Look at these gusty winds as these systems move through on, this would be mainly Sunday night or extremely early Monday morning. This is 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. And you can see this highlights the troughing that's going to be plaguing the west coast of North America. And then there's really above average temperatures are going to be really getting going here across the upper Mississippi Valley here. And look at Alaska, well below average too. That troughing will be affecting them as well. 6 to 10 day, you can see that precipitation outlook, generally above average Pacific Northwest. And you can see 8 to 14 day, looks like it's going to continue that temperature outlook. But of course, we do have a chance for ridging in the extended, so we'll take that as it comes. 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook. You can see above average generally for the Pacific Northwest. Now I'm going to zoom in on this here a bit. This is sea surface temperatures. This is normal for this time of year where it starts to warm up here in the eastern Pacific along Mexico. But you can see the upwelling occurring here, and this is generally below average. And this map down here kind of shows you the sea surface temperature anomalies. You can see the below average temperatures extend well on into the central Pacific. And this is how we measure La Nina conditions. You can see over the last few weeks here, this upwelling has increased, kind of kicking these temperatures even colder here. So we are in moderate La Nina territory right now. It's actually gotten even colder here across, or actually relatively so, the anomaly. Across the central Pacific there. And this is where we measure La Nina and El Nino conditions by the temperature of this water, just how far above or below average it is. So that's what we're dealing with there as far as La Nina is concerned. And you can see here, you see the general troughing over the Pacific Northwest here through mid-April, through later April, the general troughing still existed. There's Alaska, Hawaii, and North America here. And here we go through late April. You can see that troughing still existed here. And again, we've been dealing, this doesn't show it as much, but you can see this jet streak out here across the Western Pacific is kind of a highlight of what La Nina conditions are. We tend to get warmer water here and a better pressure gradient coming with the cooler air off of Siberia here tends to spawn a better pressure gradient or a jet stream here, which tends to bring a little bit of ridging as this moves up and then brings a little bit of troughing across Pacific Northwest. That's kind of a signal of La Nina. And that's, what we've been dealing with here for the last, what seems like forever now, but for the last month at least. And we took a break from that at some points in winter, but now we're back full force in it. So I know a lot of people talk about how we wasted winter. We were getting some ridging going on there for a while, but we're paying for it now with this extended winter-like conditions all the way through springtime. So enjoy that rainfall today. Enjoy that wind as we go through the day today for the Willamette Valley and Puget Sound. Tomorrow, as the system moves through and brings that pressure rise, then we're going to bring another system into Northern California on the day Sunday, and we're going to remain cool, and then we're going to get a reinforcing shot. Another system will slide down out of the north and continue to bring us cold weather on in through next weekend. So cold weather lovers, enjoy this while it lasts. We are scheduled to have a normal pattern for summer, at least temperature-wise, at least according to the Climate Prediction Center. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll check out this ridging as it goes into the extended tomorrow. We'll take a look at some of these thunderstorm chances, and there is a general thunderstorm threat for much of the area today. You can see some of this colder air associated with this system moving through. There are some breaks in the clouds here a bit as this system will move onshore during the day today, but yeah, we're going to continue this troughing onto the extended, and I hope you guys enjoy this weather while it lasts, because we'll probably wish for it a little bit, I imagine, at some points during this summer as we start to warm up again. So, yeah, click like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.